Psalm 107 concludes with an invitation to heed the works of the Lord and to ponder what he has done. We're pondering together what the gospel is, that when Jesus came, he made a way through his sacrificial death for us to be redeemed, meaning brought back from being owned by death. We don't have to be owned by death anymore. And that's both a future reality, a future hope, a future confidence, and a present way of living. And if we kind of hang on to that future, like, okay, death is not the end. That's really only the beginning of really fully experiencing who we were created to be.
Hello and welcome. Before we jump into today's episode of the Four Leg Norman podcast, I want to invite you to take one simple step that really helps us out. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, would you do that right now? Subscribing ensures you never miss new conversations, stories, and updates happening here at the church and on this podcast. And in addition, it helps our church reach even more people in our community with healing, connection, and purpose. Thanks so much for tuning in to our conversation wrapping up the series on Psalm 107 and the theme of redemption in the Bible. We hope you learn about how God redeeming us actually changes your life. Now let's get into today's episode. So I wore a Texas-themed kind of outfit because you just got back from Texas on a trip with your two sons doing a kind of a barbecue Texas tour. So tell us a little bit about how that was, and is Texas barbecue better than North Carolina barbecue?
You know, I'm not going to make any controversial statements, but I will say I understand what our Texas friends are talking about when they speak in reverential terms about Texas barbecue.
Mm-hmm. Is it a religion there?
It's a religious experience.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
What was the best barbecue item of food you had while you were there?
Oh, it's got to be the brisket.
The brisket, yeah. That's what I was figuring.
You walk into these places and on the walls, it's like brisket is king. You know, you can get T-shirts and hats, you know, with brisket all over them.
Did you get a T-shirt or hat?
I didn't get, but my sons did. My sons did. I got some Baylor swag.
There you go.
We went to a Baylor football
your son
game.
Goes.
That's right. Yeah. Sons at Baylor. But no, yeah, it was really great. Everybody specializes in brisket, and then they all kind of have other things that beef ribs might be one place's sort of signature item, or the sausage, like the homemade sausage. They all have a jalapeno cheddar sausage. I found out. Yeah, we ate a lot of barbecue.
Yeah.
Lot of barbecue.
You know, we have our traditional sides, I guess, that go with a barbecue joint. Were they different there? Like, did they have different sides to pair with it? Or?
The most consistent difference was the way they do their beans. So they just have more like traditional pinto beans. They're not all kind of barbecue sauced up like they are in the East, or at least wherever I've lived. They weren't like barbecue baked beans. They were more like seasoned, yes, but like kind of like well-seasoned pinto beans.
Interesting.
Which I guess gets kind of to the Tex-Mex side a little bit.
Yeah,
perhaps.
That would make sense.
They all have a banana pudding, which my son, my younger son, every time he's like, got to get the banana pudding.
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite dessert, probably.
Yeah. And this was his graduation gift. So he graduated from high school this past May. And I will say we picked the right time of year, too. So,
weather was
early
probably
November
nice.
in Texas is just about right.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. We had a great time. So thank you for, your homage to Texas with your denim gear
Absolutely,
today.
yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. At least I think this is a Texas-style outfit. Maybe I'm wrong, but
it looks Texas
also
to
have
me.
You can't really see it. I wore my belt buckle, too.
Nice.
That definitely is.
And you got your boots
Texas
on.
thing. And I got my boots, yeah.
I wore my boots all over Texas.
Yep, you got to.
Yeah.
That's just the thing. Yeah, I was watching the CMAs last night, and just all these guys with just like huge belt buckles coming up on stage.
Yeah,
it's just
I don't have one of those.
Yeah, I don't really have a reason to have one. I just think they're cool. So
you wear it
well.
one.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
appreciate that. So we're in the last week of the 107 series.
That's it.
Based on Psalm 107. And I'd love for us just to kind of go back a little bit and just kind of take a tour through what we've talked about so far, and just because I don't know about for you, but when we started this conversation about redemption and like what does it actually mean in the Bible, I've just been like fixated on it since we started this conversation, and things have settled in my mind the longer we've gone through this series, and I think I said this on, it was either the last episode or the one before, but it truly has increased my gratitude in this season for redemption, to understand what it is as a benefit of the gospel and have more clarity on it. Truly has bolstered my gratitude for what Jesus has done. And I think it's doing that in our whole church in a sense. Like, Evan was a part of, we had a group called Surviving the Holidays, which is a group that kind of processes the grief of losing a loved one and not having them around during the holiday season. And he even said that being a part of that group, he walked away with like a deeper understanding of what Jesus has done and appreciation for what Jesus has done that he hasn't had in a while, just because these people who were close to death and experienced death close, in close proximity to them, had a deeper appreciation for what Jesus has done by repossessing us out of death. And so, I think this has been a worthwhile conversation. So I'd love to just start with what do you feel like the Lord has taught you the most through this series? What has he kind of imprinted on your heart as you've been doing all the sermon prep and having these conversations and conversations with people at the church?
Yeah, no, that's good. One thing that we talked about probably on the first week was how much we don't really see our own situation. We kind of talked about the snow globe and how we're in a broken world that's, in a sense, owned by death. Right, everything dies in this earth, but we don't feel that. We don't feel the weight of that, except for when we lose a loved one. Right, we brush up against it, but we're in a very death-averse culture. People, we don't want to think about death. We want to live as long as possible. There's industries, billion-dollar industries on like longevity products, to live as long as you possibly can, and it's a way of prolonging life, avoiding death. So I think in our culture, we're so steeped in, I guess, grasping on to what we have and thinking this is the ultimate, right?
Yeah.
But from God's perspective, from the ultimate reality, we're in a world that's broken, that's owned by death, and we need to be redeemed from this. We need to be rescued, delivered from a world that's owned by death, not cling to a world that's owned by death. But everything in us, like instinctively, wants to cling to it and maximize it. And so I think it's for me, I guess the reflection is, okay, that's not natural for me either. And there's reason for that. I mean, there's lots of good graces and wonderful gifts in this life. I don't mean to say that the world is a terrible place and this life is terrible and we should try to get out of it. That's not at all what I mean to say. But life is a mix. That's why we need wisdom. The psalm ends calling people to wisdom, and I think part of that wisdom is embracing what's good and beautiful about the world and life, and going to Texas and eating barbecue and enjoying friends and family and football and Thanksgiving and the holidays. I mean, there's just so much great stuff. But at the same time, recognizing that this is not ultimate stuff. At the end of the day, all of it will die. It's going to perish. And we need to be rescued from that. We need to be redeemed back to the eternal intention that God had when he created people, like humanity. So just the invitation to sort of stop and reflect on that has been one thing for me. And then as we've gone through the different weeks, just kind of following the structure of Psalm 107, that redemption story plays out in so many different ways to help us, I think, connect to that ultimate story.
Mm-hmm.
So, we opened up with, sometimes in life, just like the Old Testament Israelites, we're wandering and we're lost and we don't have a home to go to. We're homeless.
Mm-hmm.
God brings the homeless home, and that's what redemption looks like. And it played out in real time, in real history for them. But that points us to the ultimate. We're not at home in this world. We are created for another home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one aspect or way that redemption works out. It also works out when we're sort of enslaved or trapped, whether physically or trapped in an addiction or, something that's just keeping us imprisoned in one way or another. The ways our minds and hearts get infected and we just become fools. We just kind of self-harm. We begin self-sabotage, all those things. We need to be redeemed from those things, from being imprisoned, from being foolish in our own ways. And then, last week, when Shadrach took us to that section of the Psalm where we're talking about the merchants and, just the ordinariness of life, making a way, making a living, moving through life. The routines that we're all caught up in, not making those ultimate, and God sees what we do, and God meets us where we are in the regular stuff of life. So I think, there's the ultimate kind of what is our spiritual condition ultimately in a world that's owned by death, governed by death, and how does it work out in various ways in life to help us see that? It's stuff to chew on.
Yeah, because I think that's what I've realized, like, as we've been talking about it and digging into it, is I feel like in the way I was brought up, redemption was talked about in such simple terms. Like, it really isn't as simple as we like to make. Like, it's a cosmic thing that God has done that, yes, has implications for us personally. But sometimes I feel like we miss the forest through the trees. We focus so much on, like, the individual impact it's had on me that we don't see, like, the big picture of, like, cosmically what has God done in the death, resurrection, and life of Jesus. And it hit me listening to another podcast this week. There's a podcast called Flagrant with Andrew Schultz and a couple other comedians, and they actually had the Bible scholar Wes Huff on not that long ago, shortly after he did Joe Rogan, and they just recently had Tim Tebow on. So they're kind of like dabbling in, like, faith, religion conversations, but to my knowledge, none of them are really, like, hardcore Jesus followers. I think one of them grew up Hindu, another one, or a couple others, grew up Catholic. But the extent to their relationship with God right now, it sounds like they're more on the fringe, I guess would be the way to describe it. And, they're asking Tebow all these questions about his playing days. And, if you know Tim Tebow, you know how he is. Like, I mean, he's just going to be bold
out there
about the gospel. And so it's cool hearing him tell all these stories and them reacting to it. So I wanted to play a clip because there was one question or one thing he was reflecting on, and he's talking to these guys and he's talking about the gospel, and it, to me, hit as just this clear picture of, like, the concept of redemption we've been talking about. He's not going to use those words, but it's in what he's saying. And he's like passionately talking to these guys about it and saying, like, this is good news. And I think that's where I've come to, is that to understand redemption as we live in a world where Paul says the wages of sin are death. In other words, what we're owed for the consequences of the choices we've made, our wage for that is death. That's how the world functions. And you can watch the news for 5 minutes and see that that's reality and that that's the case. And redemption is the idea that God knows that we're being wrongfully possessed by death. And so he chooses to enter into our world and to go through death, to bring us through death
into life on the other side of death. So that death isn't the end of our story.
Yeah.
And sin and chaos no longer possess us, but we're in the possession of another. And that's our identity. And we forget that identity often, and we go back to sin, and we stumble, and we still have prideful thoughts and things that we wrestle with and struggle with. But at the end of the day, our identity is we are redeemed. Yeah. And I think that's the psalmist says, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. Yeah. He's making an identity statement about who they are. And that's kind of what Tebow's going to get at. And it's cool. So I'm going to go ahead and play it.
I haven't heard it.
We can react to it.
Good question. I want to ask you, how do you want people to actually see you? But I can answer the question first if you want me to.
I can answer that. I think after having a kid, I cared a lot less about how the world sees me. I think before that, I really kind of defined myself by like my work. And that was like my identity. And like, as long as these things were going well, then and the way that people
also put my identity in and stuff far too often.
Yeah.
I have to battle it. I would say that probably one of the areas that I want to always correct is when people put me on a pedestal. One of the first things that I say is that I don't ever deserve to be on that pedestal. I always want to try to take myself off and put Jesus on the pedestal. Because if people watch or look at me long enough, I will let them down.
And is it a fear of letting them down?
Well, fear is part, but it's also, I am, sometimes because of the media and the hype of certain things and whatever, it's just like, well, you're this or this or this, and you're praying and you're this. And it's like, no, man, I'm a screw up that is just, that I'm a screw up that gets
so funny you say that.
Like, I if you look at, so I'll give you an example. When, for my freshman year at the University of Florida, for home games, we'd get on the bus and we'd drive to the stadium. Our stadium's called the Swamp, and we'd get out about 100-ish yards away, and we would walk down something called the Gator Walk. And for a average game, 10, 15,000, bigger game, 20.
Did you ever go to a game and do the Gator Walk?
I haven't done the Gator Walk. I've been to games.
But you never did the Gator Walk?
Okay. No.
Okay.
25,000. Like, it gets you ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, and first couple times it was awesome. But then, man, when I started walking down it after the first few weeks and stuff's going good and we're winning and I'm playing, and there'd be people that would be wearing my jersey, and I'd have these thoughts and these voices in my head of, oh, you're somebody now. And I'd have these voices of like pride and arrogance. And then I would keep walking, and there'd be a mom or dad with their son or their daughter, and they would say, hey, I just want you to know you're a son's role model. You're a daughter's role model. And I wouldn't have confidence in it. I'd actually have shame. And I would just want to say, no, sir, no, ma'am. Not if you knew me on my worst day, I wouldn't be their role model. Not if you knew my worst thoughts, my worst actions, my worst deeds, I wouldn't be their role model. And then you keep going, and there would be always opposing fans that would be saying stuff, and I would run and retaliate, and I would be angry. That would be its own voices. And then there would always be near the end, even though there's not supposed to be media. Right? There's somehow always media, and you always see it. They're walking right in front of you. The camera's literally right in front of your face, and they're asking some, grandiose question, and it would start to hit me, this fear of you're not enough. And I thought, man, I can't do this every week, because I think all of those things are true.
You're not enough for their perception of you, or you're not enough
just to handle all of it.
I want to pause there. All right. What he said in that story he's telling, I feel like we all can resonate with, right? All of us have just all kinds of voices in our head. And he's going to keep going. Okay. So we'll get back to what he says in a second. But there's a song I love by an artist named Sturgill Simpson called Voices. And the chorus goes, how I wish somebody would make these voices go away. It seems they're always talking, but they ain't got much to say. And we all have this internal dialogue in our head and these voices coming at us. And I think it can convince us that, or make us question our identity and make us question who we are, make us question our role in the world, and ultimately make us feel like we are not enough. So I'm just curious, how does that hit you? Do you resonate with that at all?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're in a role, especially that you're a leader of something.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're responsible to, not just make good decisions and perform well, but do it in a way that is respect worthy. Is honorable. Is an example for others. To say something of value that's authentic and isn't just made up or surface level. There's an exposure there. I think they call it like imposter syndrome, something like that, where you go, oh man, a lot of what I say is my own aspiration for myself. The Apostle Paul talks about that. He was charged with writing most of the New Testament, and yet in a moment of vulnerability, in Philippians, he says, "Hey, I'm writing about these things, but I haven't attained all these things, but I keep pressing on toward it." I think the reality of realizing that you yourself, I myself, have not obtained the wisdom, maturity, the level of, I guess like what Tim Tebow's saying, like to be deserving of the role or any accolades or honors or whatever else. Like the way other people see you, you realize, like he says, well, there's more to the picture that you can't see. And if you could see all of it, no doubt that would change your perception. I feel that.
Yeah. I think I feel it the most in my marriage. It just seems like the enemy is constantly in my ear telling me, you're not good enough as a husband. You're going to keep messing up. You're going to keep falling short. You're going to keep being selfish over and over again. No matter how many times Haley tells you something upset her, no matter how many times she asks you to consider her more or, be more thoughtful. And gosh, I'm getting emotional just talking about it. But, so I just wanted to share that from our perspective, show a little vulnerability of like, this isn't just a Tim Tebow thing. This is a human thing. We all have these voices that get in our ear and tell us you're not enough. But I want to keep playing because he gets to the good news.
Good.
He gets,
we need some good
to the
news.
hopefulness.
We all need some of that.
Yeah.
There's the fear of you're not enough. And so then I started, I thought, man, I can't listen to all these voices. And so I started this is back in the day, you had that old iPod thing, you have this circle thing, and with the headphones, and I would hug on my teammates and I'll be the last one to walk through, and I'll put my headphones on and I would listen to a song by Casting Crowns. You've heard Casting Crowns? Yeah. And, they had a song called The Voice of Truth, and I try to remember the lyrics, but it would say, the voice of truth tells me a different story. The voice of truth says, do not be afraid. The voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. And for me, the voice of truth is God's word and God's promises that, yes, I am a sinner, but I'm saved by grace. I'm no longer defined by my scars. I'm defined by his. And I'm more than a conqueror through him who loved me. And yes, I have fallen short, but Jesus didn't fall short on my behalf. And so I get to hold on to his promises, because although those things are true, that I have thoughts of arrogance and all of these areas I fall short, that's no longer my identity is in those things. That's no longer how I'm defined. That is not how God sees me. And so I get to hold on to those promises and remember the voice of truth. And then I get to meditate on the voice of truth. And so that's a long way of answering your question, but of trying to go back to God's word and his love for us, and remember the greatest love story rescue mission of all time is the life of Jesus and what he did for us on our behalf, and to remember that and be focused and filled with that. And yes, that makes me want to take myself off of any pedestal and put him on it, because he's the only one that deserves it.
What's interesting
So yeah, I think Casting Crowns seems like that was ages ago. But
Hey man, that was my age. Yeah.
At the time he was playing, they were all the rage.
Yeah.
And I also just commend that is the song he was playing before going out and playing a huge SEC football game. Like when I played football, I was not listening to Casting Crowns before playing.
Not that kind of hype.
Yeah. But I just, man, I was watching this yesterday, and I just thought it was so powerful and so relatable.
Yeah.
And it gets to the teeth of why us understanding what God has done in redeeming us matters.
Yeah.
And why it's a big deal. And I think, the lyrics of that song actually are really powerful.
Yeah.
Like, there's all kinds of competing voices in our head, but we have a choice to choose to believe that what God says about us matters way more. Yeah. And our identity is in him. We are a people that has been redeemed. And that is, he's given that freely as a gift to all people. All of us have value in God's sight. We're loved. His Spirit empowers us to do far more than what we're capable of on our own. And, he talked about it. Yes, we still slip up. Yes, we still sin. Like, I'm not ever going to be a perfect husband this side of heaven. But what would make me a worse husband is if I fall into this trap of believing I'm a terrible husband. Yeah. Rather than trying to focus on what God's inviting me into and how he's trying to teach me to grow through what Haley's sharing with me. And that's what he said too. Is like, he goes on to give the analogy of the church not being this like museum for good people to everybody to look in on these good people, but it's a hospital for the broken. And you come together knowing you're broken, but celebrating what God has done for you. Yeah. And you allow his Spirit to just help you get a little bit better day by day and to grow in wisdom, which is, a lot of what we've been talking about too. So,
that makes me, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it really hit me yesterday. So I'm curious, how that whole story kind of lands with you.
Oh yeah. And I think there's a strong connection to what we've been talking about. I think there's a strong connection to Psalm 107 and the redeemed telling their story. He talks about Jesus coming as the greatest rescue story. Well, that's another way of framing redemption. He came to rescue us from the ownership of death in this world into life. And that's an ultimate destination in heaven, but it's also a way of living here. Yeah. And so, that section of Psalm 107 about the merchants and people just kind of living life, the problem that arises is fear and insecurity. Like when we're doing life the best we can, but we're crippled by fear and insecurity when the waves get high and things get chaotic, whether it's in our work or family or whatever our situation is, we become insecure because we recognize that we don't have enough in us to overcome it, to endure it, to get through it. Like you talk about in marriage, you're like, I want to be a better husband. I want to be more sensitive. I want to recognize before you have to tell me, right? What it is.
I want to think ahead, for once. Yeah.
That's right. How about if I had the idea before you reminding me? Yeah. But you're like, is it in me? Like I'm digging as deep as I can, and I know you want something from me, but if I could access it, and as a husband, 100%, I'm with you on that. And I think most husbands would say the same thing. Our wives are way ahead of us in terms of, sensitive intuition. Yeah. And so we're always catching up.
We're behind the 8 ball.
We're behind in that game.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think what happens, one of the consequences of living in this broken, fallen world, being broken and fallen sinners ourselves, is we carry those insecurities and the voices of death. And it's interesting. I mean, I love how Thibaut talks about kind of identifying it's the voices. And I do think, I'll say this, this is the top of my head, so I may go back and say maybe it's not true. But at the moment, I think maybe the voice that we listen to the most by a long way is our own voice. like what we think about and what we dwell on and the story that we tell ourselves in our own minds and our own hearts about ourselves, about reality. You know, when we fall into this sort of victim mode, we're telling ourselves the world is out to get us, you know. Everything is against me. I'm a victim of my circumstances or of that person's actions or whatever. And that's a voice, that's a story that when we fall into that, and I've done it, when we fall into that trap of telling ourselves we're the victim, man, we just tell it over and over and over and over. And we listen to that voice, our own condemning, you know, voice. Or, you know, in like an athletic metaphor, you know, I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't know if it's athletic or not, but I just, you know, Instagram, a reel scrolled by recently of somebody standing up on a cliff jump. You know, he's going to jump, you know, whatever, 50 feet down into the water. I forget the point of the reel, but, you know, he took forever, you know, and he's just sort of stepping up, stepping back, stepping up, stepping back, stepping up, stepping back. And you can just hear the voice going, you know, I can do it. I'm going to do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. Right. So I'm going to hypothesize that, you know, some extraordinarily high percentage of the voices that we listen to are our own in our own heads. And if it's true that statistically, you know, negative thoughts to positive thoughts are 14 to 1, like I saw one place, or whatever they are, overwhelmingly negative.
I think it's like 80% of my thoughts are negative.
Yeah.
Which, you know, if you look at just how we were created, like, you know, way back, it made sense because you kind of had to live in survival mode.
Sure.
You know, you're worried about like being the prey of some large animal, or like, you know, having to, you know, find shelter and survive the cold, and, you know, all these things. And it's like with modern technology and everything, that's not really as much of a threat. Right. Not obviously it is for some people, but in our context, it's really not that much of a threat. But our brains are still like, we were still created to have that kind of hyper, like, survival mode. So most of our thoughts are negative, but we don't have the survival component. It's just anxiety and fear and, you know, always looking for the next shoe to drop. Right.
To be afraid
Even
of,
though there's not as many actual threats to, like, our existence.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know that I would say we were created for that, because I think we were created for a perfect relationship with God and a perfect world that He created, but we fell into that. And so it's instinctive to us as fallen sinners in a broken, fallen world to be negative, right? Yeah. But Jesus wasn't that way, right?
Yeah.
So what do we mean when Tim Tebow says, put Jesus on the pedestal, not me on the pedestal? I think sometimes for me things like that sound like good Christian things to say. And I'm like, I'm not quite entirely sure what exactly that means.
Yeah.
But maybe one piece of it is he's who we were created to be. Like, we were created to be like that, without the negative self-talk, the negative self-voices, not governed and sort of trapped in that.
Enslaved
to it, right? Right. So when He came and made a way for us to be free of all of that negative self-talk, and it's not just self-talk, but it's the reality of death objectively. You know, he's the one and only who died, but then was resurrected, right? So He, you know, inwardly was free of the insecurities and fears and negative voices, and outwardly was free of the power of death, because, you know, the biblical phrase, death couldn't hold Him, you know?
And He says, no one will take my life from me, but I will willingly lay it down.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't rightfully possess.
There you go.
He is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have to die.
Yes.
He laid down His life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's certainly, if we're talking about the pedestal, he's capable of handling all of the things that make us afraid. Including the ultimate thing of death.
Yeah.
And so that's redemption, right? But back to, I think, what can we do? Because, I mean, this is a lot of big,
Yeah.
big theology, right?
Yeah.
The stories that we tell, the voices that we hear, Psalm 107 concludes with an invitation to heed the works of the Lord and to ponder what he has done. And I think that's what we're doing. Like we're pondering
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
what the gospel is, that when Jesus came, he made a way through his sacrificial death for us to be redeemed, meaning brought back from being owned by death. We don't have to be owned by death anymore.
Yeah.
And that's both a future reality, a future hope,
Yeah.
a future confidence, and a present way of living. And if we kind of hang on to that future, like, okay, death is not the end. That's really only the beginning of really fully experiencing who we were created to be. And that's coming, and it's very certain because Jesus has already walked that path. He's been resurrected. You know, people for 2,000 years have been trying to prove it wrong, and nobody has. So we can confidently rest in our secure future hope. And because of that, as we ponder it, as we meditate on it, as we listen to the voice of truth, I think we're able to overcome a lot of those fears and anxieties that cause things to go sideways for us now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when we're talking about our marriage or our work or whatever it may be, parenting, there's a lot to get down
Being
on.
a single guy in your mid-20s,
Yep.
feeling alone.
Yeah.
There's every stage of life brings with it its own voices
Yeah.
that you have to battle with and wrestle with.
Yeah. I'm never going to get out of this. I'm not good enough to find a husband or a wife, or I'm not good enough. Couples struggling to have children, loss of a job. You know, I'm not good enough to get that job that, you know, whatever.
Or you're in a job that you hate and you're like, I'm never going to get out of here.
All those things.
Yeah.
We want our circumstances to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that, you know, trust in Jesus and all those things are going to, you know, come your way. Like, that's not redemption. But redemption is we don't have to be enslaved to finding our value and identity and life in those things. There is life outside of these temporary things that we really want.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's been. I think that's why I appreciated this clip so much. Like, Tim is passionately talking to these guys who may or may not know Jesus about what it's like to be one of the redeemed and how it plays out in his life. That's what this series has done for me. Is I probably talk to people about the gospel way less than what I should, because I'm scared of what they might think, or I'm scared they might have, you know, be offended, or, you know, and I'm just being real. You know, I think all of us would struggle with that to a certain extent. But what the series has done has been like, no, this is actually the best news anyone could hear, is that, like what Paul says, he says, I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but him who lives through me.
Yeah.
And you have this new identity to where it's not like you're just going to always sin no matter what, and you're just never, like, that's just your reality for the rest of your existence. But instead, we all are faced with a choice. And, you know, I'm still having these thoughts settle, so I reserve the right to be wrong if what I'm saying is false. But in my mind, it seems like we all have a choice. God's already done the work of redemption, and he's given it to everyone freely as a gift. But the life that he offers come when we enter into a trusting relationship with him and try to meditate on who he is and the stories that he's given us that shape us to become more like him, and the relationships that he's put in our lives that make us become more like him. But we can still choose to go back to being enslaved as well. It's a choice either way. And so I think the good news for people is you do not have to keep living the same cycle that you've been living for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. There is freedom. There is life in Jesus because of what he's done for you. And you just have to choose to follow him.
Yeah.
That's what he says.
Yeah.
Just follow me.
Yeah.
And I'll show you a better way. I'll show you the path to life.
Yeah.
If you just follow me. And it's good news for us as Christians to be reminded of that, because I think for a lot of us, we need to be reminded of who we are. We need to listen to the voice of truth because we've been listening to our own voices for too long.
I agree. And I think one of the most helpful articulations of how to do that, you talk about having trouble, which we all do, talking about Christian things among non-Christians, people who share, don't share our faith. One of the most helpful framings for me came from one of our favorite books, which was not at all a Christian book.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything you think.
Yep.
So kind of the core idea in this book, not written from a Christian perspective at all, is how can we overcome the negative overthinking that we get caught in? Well, in his language, it's by learning to trust the universe, that the universe is doing good stuff, and learning to trust your intuition. Like, look inside and find your intuition and just trust your gut. And if you trust the universe and trust your intuition, then you're going to be okay. Which is not at all a Christian philosophy.
Yeah.
But as I'm reading through
a lot of holes in it.
But as I'm reading through this book, it sort of occurred to me, if every time he says universe, you sub in God, who does run the universe and who does work all things together for good, who is in control, and if you sub the word intuition for Holy Spirit, which is the inward life of God in everyone who has put their faith and trust in Jesus, and if you believe that the God who is in control of the universe is the same God who has been deposited inside of followers of Jesus, because that's the Spirit of Jesus, and that, God the Father and God the Holy Spirit, they talk. They're in cahoots, and they're both doing good things. Then we can trust. We can, that's a voice of truth, that the same God who runs the universe has placed his Spirit inside of followers of Jesus. It's the Spirit of Jesus. And while we'll still go through hard things, we're not going to become perfect husbands overnight.
Yeah.
But being a perfect husband is no longer the ultimate thing.
Right.
Like, me screwing up today isn't like the end of the world.
Yeah.
I can humbly ask for forgiveness and live to make a new decision on another day.
Because of what Christ has done.
Yes, because it's okay. Everything isn't life or death. The life or death has been settled. And now we can live in relationships with other people without the weight of everything. Like, whether or not we get that job feels like life or death if that's the ultimate thing. But if we really believe that there is a God who's in control of the universe, and it's the same God who's put his Spirit inside of me, whether or not I get the job, I might really, really want the job. But if I don't get it, I can trust that there's a reason. And I might have to go through the next long season of life not making as much money as I would have made at that other job, and that creates a whole other set of stresses that, get inside my head and keep me up at night. But if I really believe that the God of the universe is that same Holy Spirit inside of me, then it's going to be okay. Like, he's holding the big stuff together, and he's the one who's able to guide me through it, because there's so much I can't see. There's so much I don't know. You and I don't know tomorrow. You and I don't know what's going on around the block. You and I don't know most of anything in the world. We only know our limited view. But he sees it all. And if we trust that he's going to navigate us through it, then we're living into our redemption. Like, we've been purchased. We've been brought out of being enslaved to kind of tripping around in the dark.
Yeah, and I think that's, Psalm 107 is kind of this like just reflection on Israel's story as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's a good point to bring up because, I said, we all have a choice. But at the end of the day, if we know anything from Israel's story, we would have made the same choice
Sure
10
we
times
would.
out of 10.
Yeah.
But that's the love of God, that he's not just the universe out there that we're trusting
the
in.
Impersonal universe.
Right.
Right.
And this is what separates Christianity is he's a God who loved us enough and wants us to be who he created to be. So he came as a human, united himself with us, and then he invites us to be united with him in his death and resurrection so that we go through death with him out on the other side into life. So this eternal life that he offers us, which, like you said earlier, is this future thing we'll experience, but it's also a present reality, is not something we could have attained on our own. And so God became human to do it on our behalf.
Yeah.
And when we follow after him and we give our lives to him, we're united with him in his death. And this is what baptism is, right?
Yeah.
We say it when we baptize people. Buried with Christ in going in the water, raised to newness of life as you come out of the water, right? And that's the symbol of what's taking place when we put our trust in Jesus. And it's because we can't do it, but he has done it.
Yeah.
And because he's done it and he's given us his spirit to empower us to live the life we need to live, like that's good news.
It is good news.
Without it, just live in the world. Like, pay attention to what's going on in the world, and you're like, there has to be a better way because it's a mess. And I can't imagine what my marriage would be like if I didn't have the Spirit of God living in me.
Yeah.
Or I can't imagine what my friendships would be like, or my relationships with my family.
Yeah.
What work would be like if I didn't have the Spirit of God in me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all a journey, right?
Yeah.
Your marriage is like the Israelites in the wilderness, like the history of Israel. You got desert experiences, you've got blessing experiences, you've got exile experiences, over the years of a marriage. And if every decision along the way is life or death, man, that's a ton of pressure. That's a crushing weight. But if we believe, just like God led the Israelites in all of their history, in the redemption story, he's guiding your marriage, your marriage story, and ultimately he's the author of your story, not you, then that's a better way to be married.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're telling me that God of the universe is going to empower me to be a better husband? That's amazing news.
Yeah.
And
that it's okay when you're not a perfect husband.
Right.
And in fact, you're not surprising God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Haley shouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah. And in fact, he's actually given me her to help me live into the life that he created me for. So this isn't a marriage podcast.
We're both married guys. So.
We both are married guys. So I'm glad the Spirit led you to Psalm 107 so that we could talk about redemption. It has been really good for my soul. To reflect on it. And I hope that's been true for you as we've gone through this series together. We'll be kicking off our Advent series in next week. Yeah, next week. So we'll start a new topic when we get to that point. But we've enjoyed this one. So thanks for joining us for the ride. And if you're new to the podcast or you're new to just coming into contact with our church, we're a church that exists to bring healing, connection, and purpose to people all around Lake Norman through the love of Jesus. We would love to connect with you. And so there's a link to our website in the description. You can go there and connect with us. And if you enjoyed the show, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that way you get notified when we drop new videos and new podcast episodes. And we will see you around. Have a happy Thanksgiving.